And joining us now from the state capitol in Richmond is Virginia Democratic Senator Tim Kaine. Senator Kaine, thank you for coming.
Good morning,
As I
Bob.
understand it, it's not that you disagree with what the president is doing now, but you think Congress should go on record and vote on this and put some end date to this operation, however it turns out. Am I summarizing your view correctly?
Bob, you state it correctly. I think the president's definition of the mission has been careful, and that's why I've introduced an authorization to essentially authorize the mission as he described it with some key limitations. And I also think the administration has done a great job of bringing together the multinational coalition. But we're not supposed to start a war without Congress. I'm sitting in the Capitol that Thomas Jefferson designed here in Virginia. He, James Madison, George Mason, and others who participated in the drafting of the Constitution made a critical break from previous history where war was a matter for the monarch or the executive and said that war should not be started without Congress. The reason they did it? We shouldn't be putting our servicemen and women in harm's way if there's not a political consensus that the mission is worth it. So I think the president's assertion that he can do this, I think he does not have the Article II constitutional authority to do this entire mission without Congress, and neither of the authorizations passed by Congress in 2001 or 2002 cover it. We should be debating and voting on this entire mission.
Well, how detailed and what exactly do you want the Congress to vote on? What would be included in this resolution if it to be what you want?
Bob, the resolution that I've introduced, and some other members have introduced similar resolutions, basically tracks the president's four-point plan. Humanitarian aid, of course, that's not controversial, and the U.S. is the biggest provider of humanitarian aid in the world to Syrian refugees. Airstrikes in Iraq and Syria, counterterrorism operations to go after ISIL leadership wherever they are. And in addition, the training and assisting of ground forces, whether it's the Iraqi security force, the Peshmerga in the Kurdish area, or vetted opposition in Syria. So that is what we propose. And then there are some key limitations. I include a sunset where the president would have to come back and keep Congress informed to extend the mission beyond a year, a limitation on ground forces, a repeal of the 2002 Iraq authorization so we don't have dueling authorizations out there, and a careful definition of who the target is. The notion of we can go after people who perpetrated 9/11, and it's now being used to go after groups that didn't even exist when 9/11 happened, suggests we've got to be very careful in how we define who we are at war with.
You know, so far at least, you're sort of a lone voice. I know there are some others that agree with you. But the majority of Congress seem just delighted to be able to get out of town and not have to go on record on this. What do you think about that?
Bob, it really concerns me that the president would assert he has the ability to do this unilaterally when, as a candidate for president, he made very plain that the president cannot unilaterally start a war without Congress. He was very clear about that. But you're right, to the extent that there's some culpability here, it probably is more on Congress's shoulders. We adjourned on the 18th of September. That's the second earliest recess before a midterm since 1960. And you know what? If the president had asked us to stay, like David Cameron asked Parliament to come back, we would have. And the vote that Congress passed on the one piece of it that we voted on, the training of Syrian opposition, showed strong bipartisan support in both houses. We could have given the president, and more importantly, we could have given our servicemen and women the strong backing of our political class before we ask them to risk their lives in what could be a very extended mission.
All right. Well, Senator, we want to thank you very much for being with us this morning. We'll be back in 1 minute to talk to our panel of experts.